Welcome to the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast, your place for truckside chats and insights into the retriever game. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned handler, this podcast is another resource for tips, tricks, and insights from both the amateurs and professional trainers' perspectives. Each week, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of retriever training, sharing stories of success, overcoming challenges, and forging stronger bonds with our dogs. This is the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. I'm Chris Rudd, your host, fellow retriever enthusiast, and student of the game. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. Everybody, I hope you're having a great week. I'm having a great start to my week because the Chicago Bears did not suck this weekend, which makes me feel super good. We should have lost, but we did not, so go Bears, bear down. It's rare that I can say that we, didn't blow. I saw a stat that this is the first time we've won a road game in 18 games. That's pretty bad. 19 games. That's pretty stinking bad. So as a Bears fan, I'm feeling pretty good. We're 2-2. Probably the rest from this point on is going downhill because that's just what happens to us tortured Bears fans. But that's the way it goes. Also want to thank our sponsors, Purina Pro Plan, for sponsoring this and every episode of the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. Been feeding this great food for 6 years now. Really, really like it. Also, thank you to the Hunt Test Guide for their continued sponsorship, as well as Retriever Foundations, if you're looking for the best puppy course out there. I firmly believe it is, probably because I sat there and filmed a whole crap load of it and have helped Dan put it together. But, man, all the positive feedback has been really good. And if you're looking for another great course as an amateur, check out the Amateur's Guide to Hunt Test Success, which is my course, and use the discount code HOBO, H-O-B-O, if you want to get a good old discount off of my course. Also, I finally went hunting for the first time in 2025, and it didn't completely suck. We did all right. We went up to the UP, I shot my first widge, which was kind of cool. I was surprised to shoot that, and we shot 18 birds with two guys, so it felt pretty good over a 2-day period, and only had one major training mishap, but hey, you got to learn. So maybe I'll get into that at the end. But before we get too deep in this, I want to thank Chris Jobman for joining me today with the Flatlanders podcast. Elliot, who's a good friend of mine, and Chris do that podcast over there, and I've been a long-time listener. Really enjoyed the latest episode they did with Tracy Stubbs and the Grand. I do have a few questions I'd like to ask about that later, but before we dive into that, Chris, welcome to the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
So, Chris, I'm sure most of the listeners. Oh, before we get too deep into this, I got an email from BuzzFeed, who hosts the podcast, and said we got our 50,000th download last night, which feels pretty good. At least some people want to listen to this hobo. So, and more probably not really me. It's probably the great guests I have on, like Chris. So, Thanks for everyone for listening, and yeah, I'll keep it going. And I did want to say, I don't know how much longer we're going to go. We might take a break like we did last year. When hunting season starts, I don't train as much, so it might be time to put a little pause on the podcast. So I'm giving you all a warning. Might not get every episode on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or Tuesday. Do it Tuesdays now. Sorry, I can't keep track of my own crap. Anyway, Chris, welcome, man. And
thanks for having me, bud.
For those that live under a rock and don't know who you are, why don't you give me the 2-minute download on kind of who you are and what you've been up to?
Oh man, Chris Jobman. I live out here in western Nebraska, just east of Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, which is basically 3 hours north of Denver. Been training dogs since 1991. Turned professional in 2000. So that's 25 years of doing it every day, all day long. We got pretty good stuff going out here. We run HRC hunt tests. We run AKC hunt tests. We run a few quals, very few quals nowadays. Back then, I used to run quite a few of them. I did win one this year, but we run a few quals, do a lot of hunting dogs, do a lot of hunting. We're hunters. I mean, I'm a duck hunter through and through, but we stay pretty busy. We run the Grand, we run the Master National. I used to run the SRS a bazillion years ago. Was a member of Team Water Dog back in the day, a long time ago. But I've been around for a little while.
Yeah, sounds like it for sure.
Yeah.
So you were an amateur for 9 years. Did I get that math right? Or did I miss it?
Yep. I trained in the 90s. I had a pile. I was a big pheasant hunter back in the day, and I lived in Sidney, Nebraska at the time, which is the home of Cabela's. I mean, I knew Dick and Jim Cabela. I knew all the Cabela kids. That's where Cabela's is from. And I ran around in the 90s with a pile of Springer Spaniels. I loved them. I hunt tested them.
Yeah.
I hunt tested them. I field trialed them. I mean, I probably pheasant hunted more than most people do, and I loved it. And then I got into the dog training through them, and started training retrievers, for buddies in the 90s, and never took a dime until 2000. But then I started, doing gun dogs, and I ran my an HRC test, and then I ran an AKC test, and it was on after that.
So when you were the amateur figuring it out, like what resources did you kind of lean on?
Everything.
Everything?
No, there is no. See, that's the thing about me is I didn't learn under anybody. I didn't apprentice under anybody. I didn't assistant. Nothing. There was nobody out here, and there was not a pro dog trainer within. I'll bet 300 miles or more around Sydney. There was nobody. And then if there was, there'd take one or two dogs. There wasn't a big pro that you could learn from. So that's why I'm a little bit different nowadays. Everybody gets their HR title and throws up a shingle and thinks there's a pro dog trainer. But I did it for basically 9 years with my own personal dogs and buddy dogs, just helping. And I listened to every DVD I watched, every book I watched. You name it, I've done it. I own it. Back in the day, I was thirsty for information and knowledge, and I just ate it all up. And I fell in love with the process of training a dog. And retrievers the Springers are a lot different than a retriever, like a lab or something. But all my Springers would run blinds. They could run finish level blinds, the whole 9 yards, and that was a lot of fun for me. But I learned through trial and error over 9 years, like with my own personal dogs. And so, like when I tell my assistants now, hey, do it this way, or how I built my program, I've made every mistake in the book 100 times. And I just said, this doesn't work. This works better. This doesn't work. Ooh, never do that again. And obviously, I was learning on my own personal dog, so it wasn't that bad. But I've done it, been there, done that, good and bad and ugly. So I learned the hard way, I guess you would say. That's kind of the story of my life. I just kind of throw myself in it and just go.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, some other games. I mean, I know that you're not, are you I should have looked at this when I looked at Retriever News. Like, you guys are like the top master hunter or something close to that, right? Like you guys.
Yeah, we have. I don't look at the retriever. I don't look at it. Retriever results. I don't look at it all. But I have people that send me screenshots of it, and I think we're the number one master. I say we's the kennel. We're the number one master pass in the country this year, and we are for. I'm not bragging, and I don't even know this 100% fact, but almost about every year I'm in either the number one or in the top three for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm not a big master hunter guy, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that really like it. And I think it's a great, anytime you get your dog out doing stuff, it's all good. But before that, you were doing more cues in the Super Retriever series.
Yeah.
I'm curious, not why you stopped doing it, because I'm sure that is, it's a big business decision and life and all that. But what are some of the things that you miss about playing those different games?
Well, and the reason why we ran Master back in the day too when I was doing all that stuff, but we didn't run the Master National because it wasn't a title. It was just a designation. Well, and then I got hooked in with Chris Aiken and Justin Tackett and all them guys, and I started, I had a couple good dogs, and they invited me down here to do that deal, and so I started running the SRS, and I really enjoyed that because I'm a competitive person. I played college football. I'm a competitive guy by nature, and I love the competitive aspect of it. I like, when when I was running the SRS, I ran quite a few Qs. I think I've made 10 qualified all-age dogs and 16 trials or something. But that kind of all went together with the SRS, running the bigger white coat stuff, running the field trial. So it all kind of blended together, and we'd run some master here and there. But as soon as we got their master titles, we were done with them running AKC. We didn't go, back then they didn't have the M&H 50s and all that stuff. So we did the SRS, and then we jumped on Team Water Dog. So then we had some some obligations with Avery to do that as well. We helped design the ATB. We helped design the rough stand. The boomer stand. I mean, we helped design a lot of that stuff. That's kind of what we were for. We put on dog demos down in Stuttgart and at Max Prairie Wings and all those things. But the field trials kind of went in with the SRS, and I love the competitive nature of it. You're standing, in a qual, you're standing, maybe a couple of dogs handle in front of you, and you're the last dog to run, and you're like, okay, if I do this good, I'm going to place. I like that feeling of, the competitive nature of it. But what I didn't like about it, and to this day I still don't like about it, is I don't like rooting against my friends. I want everybody to do well. I want all my friends to, be healthy, happy, have good businesses, all those things. And so when you see a friend of yours dog go down, you're like in a qual or something, you're like, oh, I'm going to win now. I don't like that feeling. So, and I got out of the SRS game a long time ago. I was in it, and this is going to sound crazy. I remember Steven, I don't know if Steven listens to this or not, but Steven Durrance, he summered here one year. And I took him and Kendra, his wife, Eileen, my wife, and they ran their very first SRS in Huntsville, Alabama. And Eileen and I took Kendra and Steven to Zaxby's Chicken for lunch. Then his very first week, we went out and we had lunch together. And he's a great dude. He's a great dog trainer, great guy. But back then he was just a pup. We were all real young. But I was in the SRS before Lyle Steinman ran. I was in it before Lyle even ran it. I was in it before Steven ran it. So we were the first. There was two waves of it. There was like your initial group of SRS guys. There's Chris Aiken, Scott Greer, Barry Lyons. But then there was a little second wave that came into it. We were right behind them, me, Rody Best, Derek Randall, all them guys. But we were like the core group of that kind of held that together for years. And we had a lot of fun traveling the country doing those things. And back in those SRS days, Shannon's going to kill me if I'm not going to get this all right. But I think there was like 6 events total for the entire year.
Yeah.
And you had to, get first, second, or third to make the Crown Championship. And I was lucky enough to make the Crown. I had the first Nebraska dog to ever go to the Crown. And, but if you didn't hit those events, you didn't have enough points and placements to get into it. So you had to hit those events. Plus, we had obligations with sponsors and stuff. So life was so busy back then. We ran all the grands and the HRC stuff, AKC on the weekends, SRS, we take off. I can't tell you how many sandwiches from a gas station Eileen and I had on Thanksgiving, like on Thanksgiving Day. On Thanksgiving Day, I will never forget. I think the Wings Over the Prairie is always around Thanksgiving or day after Thanksgiving down in Stuttgart. And I can't tell you, we would drive all from Huntsville, Alabama, go to Stuttgart, Arkansas, or leave from here, and we'd be driving over Thanksgiving, eating a damn sandwich out of a gas station because everything was closed. Yeah. And I did that for a lot of years. And then, but then when the AKC made the Master National an actual title, then I had to rethink what I wanted to do. And I was tired of being on the road. I had young kids, football, you name it, we had the whole thing. But so I had to really make a decision, and it was really, really hard for me to leave the SRS and my friends. But we all kind of got out at the same time. Chris and I, Ake and I, we kind of all got out at the same time. And some of those guys are back in playing, like Scott and those guys, Greer, but who's a fantastic dog trainer, by the way. But so I got out of the SRS, and then so eventually I just kind of stopped chasing quals too, because I wasn't running those big setups. And so I started really focusing on master dogs and grand dogs and hunting dogs, basically, and that took up all of my time. It just consumed me, because we have a big AKC program. We run a lot of obviously a lot of AKC stuff too.
Yeah. So do you? I know a lot of like Clark and Steven, a lot of the guys that obviously play both games. The competitive games as well as the test games. They run a lot of white coat setups as a primarily I can't even say the word. Since you primarily do hunt test, do you run like white coats? Do you have a guy standing out in white coats?
We do it. I try to do an ABCD drill once a week. I try to do that. Yeah. And I try to stretch them out. Now I don't go 500 yards like I used to back in the day. It doesn't interest me. I don't do it. I think the farthest we go is 300, 250, 300, but we run real tight ABCD drills, land and water. So I got a lot of water here at the kennel. So I like to do those. I can't get it done every week, but I really like to do it once a week, especially like after a weekend hunt test. Like if we're running a weekend hunt test, like let's say we're running a double master or a finish test or whatever, them dogs, their nose overtakes their eyes and, they do stupid things on their marks. They don't get, drag back gets them. So on Mondays, I really like to run like an ABCD drill right after a test and just kind of get their eyes focused back up and go. Or I will run something sort of like that too the day before I leave for a test to reiterate, hey, go where your eyes tell you to go. So I still do White Coast stuff. I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I really, really enjoy it. I just had to make a decision on what I wanted to do and what's best for my clients. And because let's face it, guys, you run an SRS or a field trial, you might make one person happy.
Yeah.
But if you run a hunt test, you can make a lot of people happy. And I like to make people happy. So I kind of got out of that deal and I still enjoy it. I had a dog named Vader that I ran this year in a qual in Utah, and he won it. And I told my wife, I said, oh boy, that guy was like, hey, give me that blue. And I thought, I'm gonna run a few of those this summer, and I just never did. I was too busy.
Yeah. So for those that are listening, there's, I think if you got an iPhone and you go to, and I think I said this on the podcast before, and if you type in just retrievers, there's the Retrievers app, and it's basically a dictionary of a bunch of random stuff, okay? And they got journals where you can journal your setups. And I'm not sponsored or anything, guys. It's just I'm leading up to this because Chris referenced an ABCD marking drill, and they have a drill index that you can click, and on there it gives a description. And this they pulled this from Lardy, as well as Carol Cassidy and Dennis Voigt. So you can actually see, and then they show a diagram. And there's a bunch of different versions of an ABCD marking drills. But it's basically, and I'm not going to get too crazy into it because if you got an iPhone, you can download it. I'm not sure if you can get it from Android. And honestly, if you just Google ABCD marking drill, you can see them. I don't do them every week, but I at least do 2 to 3 a month, which is pretty close, depending on where we go. And the bird tech that throws for me, he actually has 2 other versions of it tattooed on his arm. That's how serious he is about these marking drills. Chris, I'll have to text you the picture of it. But
you'll have to send that to me.
He is as dedicated as they get as a bird tech. And I'm
like
being politically correct.
That's like Yellowstone stuff there, like the brand.
He's totally branded, Yeah. I'll send you. And he's great, man. He works for a field trialer at the grounds that I train at every day. So he lives there and just throws birds for her 5 or 6 dogs.
That's awesome.
And I come an hour before she trains because she doesn't start training till 9, and I got to get to work by 9. So I meet him and I pay him to throw birds for me now, which is like the perfect relationship. But I lose him. He's going to Texas. She's got property in Texas, and I'm losing him basically the week before the Grand, which is fine because I'm going to be in Paducah. So it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna miss him when he's gone. But he is serious about throwing, and it's so funny because he literally doesn't own anything that's not white. So like I was like, hey, I'm not running SRS, I'm not running Qs anymore or Derby stuff. I need you to wear camo. He's like, I don't own anything. So I had to give him like a camo coat to wear. So he's not just this white guy standing out there, even if he's behind a hide, So
that's crazy. That's awesome. That's some dedication, let me tell you.
Dude, Vince is serious. I'll have to send you the picture. I'll post it on
I'll have to see if I can get Tanner, my head assistant. I'll see if I can get Tanner to put a dog training tattoo on him. Yeah. He'll listen to this tomorrow whenever it airs, and he'll be like, we're gonna do the FLK brand, like.
Yeah, just like Yellowstone. You'll never leave, or you're gonna go to the train station. Yeah, so Vince is a good dude. I really am honored that I have the opportunity to have him help me every day.
That is, but
the point is, dude, I got my first grand title throwing almost every mark myself, and how much more I can get done with a bird thrower is like, just so much different. Now I say that, but I would go to training days and I would try to go train with other pros, but the difference. Now, like I still put in all the things that I need the dog to be able to do, like going back to the place board, and or like throw the marks myself, drive back and run a triple. I still train all my dogs to be able to do that because I don't have him the entire year. I still lose him for 3 months that I got to do this stuff. But the amount of productivity I can have with him is just unreal.
Yeah, I own 15 or 20 wingers, and I hate them. Unless I absolutely have to use them, I won't use them. I despise them. And just like every pro trainer, I think to truly teach a good marking dog, I think it takes hand-thrown birds because they can help. They can stand out. They can fake a throw.
Yep.
They can call them back in the area. So, and it takes so long to set up and tear down, and then they don't work out the damn time. Then you're just cussing and screaming, and I hate them, but I have a bunch of them.
Yeah, no, they're a necessary evil.
They are. They are.
All right, so that was cool. I wanted to kind of understand because I do think. I don't have any statistics on this, but if I talk to the amateurs that have had success in the Grand, most of them train with some desire to do cues. And I think it really does make a difference. And all the dog games, like I think that's one of the great things about the Super Retriever series is it showed you don't have to take one path or the other. You can just train the dog in front of you, have a good time. I think field trial training, once you do it, like, I don't know, Chris, I have a QA2 dog. Like, I had to go through the whole process of learning how to teach all that. But now with my third dog that I'm doing cue work with, it's like, it's so much easier because the decisions are so much more obvious for the handler.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more easier for the dog to understand, in my opinion, just looking at the difference between a field trial mark and a hunt test mark. Yeah. Because you have that distance that I think helps. Yeah. Anyway, I would encourage people.
I agree with you. And all of our young dogs, our babies that are going to play the hunt test game, that we know that they're here for hunt test games, we don't hide guns. There's nothing worse to me to hide a gun for a young dog. We do a lot of white coat stuff. Our throwers are in white. So, yeah, we technically are doing white coat. So even if it's 50 yards, it gives them a target. Like, you focus in the field. And what we like to do with some of our young dogs coming out of the gun dog program that are going to be test dogs, we'll do an ABCD drill, and the longest mark might be 100 yards.
Oh, yeah.
Just to teach them to look past the short gun to the long gun, which is, distance is relative. You got a baby, but then you teach them, you can fire drill them and teach them to run past the old fall and behind the gun. And we do a lot of those things. So we have a real field trial flair to what we do. It's not my main deal. And if I might run a cue if I can here and there, but I'll tell you what, we run so many HRC and AKC hunt tests. I mean, we had almost 200 master passes this year. I can't remember what it was, but it's a bunch.
Crazy.
It's a bunch.
That's a lot.
I think it's 100. Yeah. I don't even know. Tanner looked it up the other day. It's 180 something, I think, or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was a bunch.
Well, I hosted like an amateur training thing in Ohio at Abbey Farms, and we had, I think, like it was 10 or 11 people that are running the Fall Grand.
I listened to that today.
Yeah, so it was fun. It was enjoyable. But I think the biggest thing that I walked away with, I was like, man, if these people would just train for cues, a lot of the things that they're missing for where they're at right now is they would have it because they're not quite challenging their dogs enough, both conceptually and honestly with distance.
And most people that run hunt tests only and that don't play any national event, whether it be the Grand or the Master National or run a cue here and there, they don't understand the blind standard. The line in the quarter of the blind at the Grand and the National and at a cue or a field trial or an SRS is very, very, very narrow. And you see a lot of those guys, their dogs usually mark real well and the blinds are pretty rough. And they don't understand the precision that you have to have to run a blind in a national event or a qual or an SRS. And
this brings up something. When I listened to you and Tracy talk, you guys talked about blind running and at the Grand. And I don't disagree with anything that you or Tracy said. But I got in a big argument. I wouldn't say a big argument. I got into a friendly debate with a former judge about how to pass the Grand. Not necessarily what the Grand is stating it's looking for. And I was primarily talking about the difference between a cast refusal And I'm not talking like an over or even a 45 across the line. And I'm not saying you have to cross the line. Like, that's not at all what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if you had to choose between a cast refusal and an overcast that wasn't chopping up the blind, which one would you choose?
In an actual test?
In a grand, yeah.
Yeah, just give me the one that takes me closer to the line of the blind, which is an over to me. If your dog, you give your dog an angle, right, and it overcasts and takes an over, but you get closer to the line of the blind when you stop them, then you cast again. That's what you want. You're not going to get kicked out of the grand for that.
Exactly.
But if
100%.
And I don't know who you're talking to, but they're wrong. But I ran this damn thing.
No, they're not. They're not wrong. They were just saying, like, what I was saying is, I was teaching. I said, lean on the side of crossing the line, not because you have to cross the line, but because you're not going to get you're going to lose some cast in a trial generally.
Yeah,
you're going to get more dig. So in training, practice crossing the line, but you don't have to. Like, that's what I was trying to preach to people.
Yeah, and when we, especially with our young, I'm running 30 dogs in the grand this year, which is actually 29. One had to get a scratch, but I had 30 dogs entered in the grand this year and 31 in the Master National, which is ridiculous. But and I got a bunch of really young dogs going to run their very first grand this fall, and they just got their HRCH as a Master Hunter, so they're 2-3 years old, and their blinds look like this. I mean, that's how they look. You know. Our grand dogs, their blinds look like this, like I talked on my podcast. But you're not going to fail the grand by doing this. Now, you will fail the grand by going like this and like this and like that. You're out if the line's here.
And for those that are listening, they never took the cast even closely back towards the line.
You got to get more out. Like Tracy said, you got to make progress to the bird or to line to the blind or to you if you're in a pinch. But even if, like you said, you would rather have your dog, if you could choose whether your dog overcasts a little bit, or scallops on you, you want overcasting. Because
100%.
Because when you get to the grand, and like you said, you're going to lose a little bit of that control, and a lot of that overcast is gone. So, yeah, and I'm a real literal caster. I'm a really, really, really literal caster. So,
I can't fake it. Like, I have to stop myself and really think. Give this thing some English, because I just don't. I just run training blinds the whole time, which is a detriment sometimes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. But you're exactly right. I would give me whatever cast you got to give to get closer to the line of the blinds. What you want.
100%. Cool. Yeah. I was just curious because I was sent your guys' podcast and said, go look at this time. And I was like, that's what I've been saying.
Well, that's coming from somebody that's run the grand. And then I'll be quite honest with you, there's a lot of judges, and I'm proud that they're judging the grand, but there's a lot of judges that never step to the line of the grand. They don't know. But but it's give me a dog that here's what I always teach people, because I'm a firm believer in our training. I don't run the white buckets. I don't run the white poles. I don't run we have a big pattern blind program, but I'm not a big momentum run to a white bucket guy. I'm not that guy. We teach straight lines through handling in our program, because when you can do that, you teach your dog how to change direction. When you run to a white bucket just to watch your dog run straight and go fast, you're teaching the dog to run straight, but you're not teaching it to handle. And if you can't handle, you're going to be out, because you're not going to line
100%.
everything. You got to teach them to handle. They got to change. They've got to change direction. Period.
I agree with you 100%. I think that I'm going to bring a good point. Is that, at least I think it's a good point, is that following a program is important.
Very.
Because whether you follow a program that Chris does, there's little steps in his ladder that he knows about that he would teach somebody that lead to something else. But when you mix and match all these different people's programs, you're going to have a confused dog. See, I run a ton of white poles, but I run white poles and I run ribbons. Like I do, and a lot of times when I do ribbons, I'm doing remote sends.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because that's indefinite handling. Now, you have to do both, but I'm trying to teach pictures a lot of times with blinds. I do want what I say is an indefinite handling dog, where no matter where I tell you to cast, like if I tell you to cast into the shore and you're just out of swim by, I'm going to work with you until you're getting out of the water. But my point is that follow a program, because if you don't, that was a big thing. I made a mistake is when I trained my first dog, I grabbed some stuff from YouTube off of what Freddie King was doing. I was grabbing some stuff that Lardy was in, and their core stuff is all the same. But all those little micro things that you're putting into the dog as you're going through a specific program, if you screw up some of those things, your dog isn't going to understand step 4 because they missed the micro steps 2 and 3.
Very confusing. And when people that work here and train here, my program is built over almost 30 damn years of doing this. And it's every step builds onto each other. They all intertwine. And if, like you said, if you miss this, it's not going to work over here. You're not going to, you can't do that. And like you said, pick a program for sure. And I think a lot of amateurs fall under that. And not everybody, but a lot of amateurs fall under that. Hey, I don't watch my dog run to a white bucket because I love to watch my dog run straight. Or they want to repeat a blind 10 damn times to watch your dog line it. You're not doing anything but damaging the dog on that, depending on the level of dog. And a lot of the amateurs that I've dealt with over the years, they have a hard time teaching their dog to change direction because they're like, oh, I only got 5 or 6 whistles in me. Well, that's because you haven't taught your dog to handle.
Yeah, that is like when I hear that, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, go back to season. Go back to season because you're not gonna, you don't need to be here. And when you say that, I'm like, okay, there's a momentum trained dog for one. Probably can't handle the mental stress because he doesn't teach him to handle. And let's face it, every time you blow a whistle, it's mental stress. You're teaching a dog to handle. That's mental stress. And those dogs usually crumble when they get here and they train with me because they can't handle all that stuff. Yeah. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but you got to understand and a lot of those amateurs, that do that, they run, rerun blinds over and over and over or run to poles a lot and their dogs don't handle. I think a lot of that comes from they don't want to drive home thinking their dog did bad if they had 10 whistles on a blind.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 or 3 corrections. That to me is training. That's exactly what you want. You're teaching them to handle and you have a correction here, a correction there, but they want to go home and sit on their couch and have their whiskey and talk to their wife, say, I'm the best damn dog trainer in the world. When all they're doing is run into a pole. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, I think a lot of that comes from their own self-consciousness and they everyone want to think their dog is doing bad.
Yeah, I see 2 sides of the spectrum. Either they put their dog in a terrible situation, the dog never has success, or they have way too much success and they're not challenging their dog. And that's where that 75 to 80% really does play. You want that, you want that challenge, but you also want them to feel good about themselves.
Yeah,
but they have to be mentally strong. Did you run there was a blind in Natchez a couple years ago where like the end, like it was like big open water. And then the last little bit was like down the shore to the right. And then there was a creek, an inlet of a creek. And then they had some trees on the side. Did you run that?
I don't remember.
You would have remembered this.
They all run together for me. I remember. I don't remember what grand we were at. We ran a really, really hard water blind one grand. I can't remember where we were at when we did it. But Rhett would know all about my buddy. But I don't. They all run together for me.
Yeah, for the listeners, I've said this 100 times, but I was like, I literally think I did 30 casts.
Yeah.
It was 30 casts, and my dog took every cast. And that was the reason that we it was eating people alive, but we just kept crossing that line.
Was that the one that went up the narrow channel?
Yeah, well, no, I think I ran that after you guys. That was like 2 years ago, right? That was where like they had the mark that flew, like you had a mark that kind of landed in a thing of grass like out to your right, and then you had this like where it went down this little channel to your left where the blind went in this dark hole. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it went all the way. You had to went all the way up into the trees, real narrow. That was in Natchez. That was in Natchez, wasn't it?
Okay. No, that was in Georgia or at that plant, that big place with the field in the middle. But I ran that. We followed you guys.
Okay.
I remember I watched Test Dog when you guys were finishing up your dogs. But that was like a similar one where you would just you could get stuck ping ponging through that channel all the way down.
And if you had a really And for people out there that want their dogs running 100 miles an hour on blind, you really don't.
Oh no,
no, because on the blinds like that, you can't stop them. They're just too fast. So
yeah, I think we talked about this on that podcast you listened to. I think Zach and I talked about that one. I can't remember, but that's a notorious blind that people keep bringing up.
Yeah.
When you just looked at it, you're like, oh, that's not too bad. But when the dogs were tired and they got to that channel, they were like, I need to get out of this water.
Yeah.
Like sit in. And the dogs that were not going to stay with you, man, you just lost them to the left.
What series was that for you?
Oh, I couldn't remember.
Because if you were following us, unless you started there, we probably ran it. If you were following us at that Grand, we probably ran it. Unless we didn't run it.
This was a different Grand. I wasn't following you at that specific.
Okay,
we're talking about two different blinds here.
Okay.
The one that you're talking about, I followed you guys at that Grand, but I don't know where I was in relation to where you guys were on that. I just was curious because Dane Johnson ran it, and I've said this probably 20 times on the podcast. I'll never forget. Like he's all like kind of goofy and happy-go-lucky, the whole time.
Did you know he worked for me, right?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Dane was my assistant for 6 years.
But you know what I mean? Like, he's kind of like goofy and fun. Yeah. He ran his first dog, and he was so serious. The whole rest of the series, just locked in. And then he got done. I was following him in the holding blind on the last bird, and he jumped up and down on the platform. I was like, yes, I'm through with that piece. Like, I don't remember, but it was something like, I'm through hell. It was something like that. Like, you know.
That's Dane. Yeah, he worked for me for 6 years, so we get along real well. But he's a character.
Oh man, I was a fun Grand. I didn't know anybody. That was my second Grand. I didn't know anybody, and I knew Jeremy Legg, and Jeremy's like, hey, he texted me Dane's number. He's like, if you have a problem, just ask Dane. He's a good dude. But I didn't get in any trouble. But I'll never forget watching him jump up and down on that little platform, hoping he wasn't going to fall off.
No, I tell you, there's about every Grand I'm doing that too. Like I'm done with it.
Well, that was question number 2 on my list of 27 questions.
Okay.
So we better keep it moving here. So this one will be a little change of pace. So if there was no more waterfowl left in the world except for coots, and there's no meat left in the world except for coots, how would you survive? Like, how would you prepare a coot? Like, what would you do with a coot to make it work?
A goose.
A goose? No, a coot.
A coot. A coot. A coot.
I'm just messing with you.
Goose, coot, same thing to me. The goose and a coot to me is the same thing. I'm a duck guy. But a coot and a goose, it's the same thing. You throw it, soak in diesel fuel for 24 hours and light it on fire.
Yeah, you're talking to that guy that probably shoots a couple hundred geese a year because that's all we got here.
I could if I wanted to. I just don't want to. I go duck hunting.
Yeah, I wish we don't have a lot of ducks here, but we get loaded up with the big old
you guys
Canadas.
do out there.
Yeah, so I got tired of grinding my own sausage, so I bought my first meat grinder and a whole kit, and I'm gonna start making my own sausage because you can't eat. There are people that can eat a goose like pretty straight. I'm not one of those people. I have to drown it in as much pork as possible.
Yeah, they take some time to prepare them. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. All right, sorry. That's
all right.
I should have asked you, how do you prepare a teal? Because I know you shoot a lot of blue wings.
Oh, if you've been talking to Elliot.
Yeah.
I love teal. I do. We shoot a lot of green wings during duck season, but I'm not going out and fighting the mosquitoes and ticks in September to do it.
Yeah,
I'm
you got more important things to do.
I'm too busy for that. Yeah.
I'm the same. I didn't shoot any teal this year because I just didn't. I had a litter on the ground, and there's no way I was getting out of here.
For sure.
So I don't think this is a controversial question, but if you take it that way, it's just all in the way you take it. Do you think we're breeding too hot of dogs for the HRC and HRC Grand, or is it mostly a training problem that we have? Because I've been seeing pretty outlandish things at some weekend finish.
I think Aiken and I talk about this all the time. I think certain people are buying the wrong dog for themselves. We are breeding hot dogs. Don't get me wrong. I'm seeing more noise and mouth problems and shit than I have in years. But some of that's training. Some of that's, throwing this kid in the strip joint at 16 years old and can't mentally handle it. That's you just can't do it. You can't put the 13-month-old and finish if it's not. I mean, I think with those hot dogs, I think the people that own them, a lot of those dogs are naturally talented. They are fun to run. They're naturally talented. They run on pure God-given talent, and they put them in the wrong situations mentally when they shouldn't. They should wait 6, 8, 10 months, a year.
Yeah.
So it's a hard question to answer because I love a hot dog. Give me a dog that's ready to roll. I built my whole career on those dogs, but I want some brains too. So if it's super hot dog, super fast dog, but doesn't have any brains, that's a hard dog for me to be around because it's not much fun. But I also don't want the dog that you have to beg to do it either.
Yeah.
I really do.
I like the dog that wants to do it no matter what, but it's got a really good head on their shoulders.
Yes. There's certain lines,
both.
and then I'm not going to tell you which lines they are because I don't want to piss anybody off. But there's certain lines I won't even. If you say your dog's out of such and such or such, I'll train the dogs. That's what I get paid to do. But I don't even enjoy being around them. And I've done it for so long that there's 2 or 3 stud dogs out there that I'm like, nope.
All right, here's maybe a deep philosophical one for you. What part of training do you think most people, or what? Sorry, let me read that again. What part of training do you think is most misunderstood?
Force fetch and pressure. Pressure.
Okay.
Everybody thinks force fetch is for your dog to hold the bird and not eat it and not chew, and that is part of it. Correct. That is part of it. But to me, a good force fetch, collar conditioning force fetch program is to teach the dogs to mentally handle pressure and how to think and how to learn and how to shut off pressure to make the pressure go away. And I think I think people do it too fast. I think there's 2 rules. You have the one person that wants to be absolutely perfect at all that, and they stay on their dog way too long and they burn them up mentally. Or you have the guy that goes way too fast and it'll just work out in training down the road. There's a fine line in there, and every dog is dog dependent. But I personally think that is a very misunderstood thing because I can't tell you how many times I've watched dogs just mentally crumble when they are getting in a tight spot mentally and they just quit. They give up, and they never taught them how to deal with it. That's why a Navy SEAL goes through buds, to teach them to deal with their life that's coming. That they're teaching them to deal with the mental stress of their life that's coming. Well, it's the same sort of deal with a dog. If you take your time and you're good at it, and you give a good presentation of it, you give it to them really good, and you teach that dog how to not be scared of mentally trying all the time.
Yeah.
And
I would totally agree with you, man. Like
Yeah.
that is so good. And that's one of the things I really love about. I can hear your puppy going back.
It's one of my wife's corgis is barking down.
Oh, it's a corgi.
They're little. If you want a corgi, anybody need a corgi puppy? Call me. I got one. I got one.
But that's one of the things that I think has advanced the most is teaching really little puppies how to be trainable and how to teach them how to adapt to pressure when they're younger.
Yeah.
Leading to that force fetch. And I think that's one of the things that, like, I don't know. Dan Erke and I produced a course for our Puppy Foundations course. And I would say there's 2 things that people really get out of it. One is they're teaching a dog how to very basic handling, with food bowl casting and things like that, which just teach them how to really engage with the handler and understand, hey, it's a team building exercise more than anything. It doesn't replace anything that you're going to do with the tee, anything that you're going to do with future handling drills. Yeah. I know you're a big double T guy. I'm just kidding.
Negative.
There's a big debate in my training group about the double T.
There is no debate. There is no debate. You don't need to do a double T.
I'm the same way.
Trust me, I've been doing it for bazillion years, and I pulled that out of my program bazillion years ago, and they have not looked back. My dogs run just as good as lines they did a long time ago. So
yeah. But the second thing that we do a ton of work in is how to teach a young puppy to handle pressure. And there's so many little tiny baby steps that you can do to help them understand pressure is not the end of the world.
No, correct.
And pressure is just a part of their life. And so they come out of that. And that's why I think Clark and Lyle have sent me their own personal dogs is because that's something that I really focus on. I really focus on how do I help them learn those two fundamental things. Oh, and the third thing is the love the retrieving game. Like that one's easy. That's the easy one. Yeah. It's the teach them how to engage with you as part of the game.
Yeah.
And then the second is how do you handle pressure?
And I think people go ahead. Excuse me. I think people really, really miss the boat when it comes to that first 6 months of their life. And here's what happens at the kennel, and you probably know this too, we're talking with Dan and everybody, but we have one of two things that happens. We have the guy that puts your dog in a kennel and doesn't touch it for 6 to 8 months, doesn't put it on burrs, doesn't put it on bumpers, doesn't socialize it, doesn't do anything around it because he doesn't want to screw it up. Or we have the super trainer whose dog is sitting at remote at 4 months old, but the retriever desire is gone because they're not an individual anymore. They're a robot. Yeah. Yeah. And they're steady at 4 months old, but they won't hardly retrieve, or you can get 4 or 5 retrieves out of them and they quit. So we have both sides of the spectrum when they show up. I personally, man, get that dog retrieving, bumpers, birds, whatever, land in water, know its name, put it in a crate, feed it, and come in dragging you through my door because of the kennel, because then I know that dog is confident. Yeah. And I would much rather deal with that than one you've got to drag through the door because it's scared to death because it's never seen another human being. And so give me that retrieving a wild maniac any day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have momentum, you have nothing.
You have nothing.
I mean, you need that momentum.
You're going to lose momentum, so you better have a bunch of it when you start.
That is true.
That is true.
But don't nag them. Don't have a wall.
Yeah, don't nitpick them and don't nag them because you're just going to burn them out mentally.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so I've been asking a lot of folks this on the podcast because this is more just a Chris Rudd's curiosity thing because I trained my first dog in one way and I've changed for later, and I like the later way. But I'm just curious for you. So you stop a dog on a cheating single? Do you stop a dog in the water when you see them make a change, or do you stop them like if they're going to cheat? Sorry, I should have said that. If they're going to cheat, do you stop them when they beach, or do you stop them in the water?
So I'm glad you asked that. I'm a big believer in teaching a thinking dog. Huge. Because they're going to get into some trouble on their own, and we can't help them out of it. So they need to figure that crap out. And I'm not now when I blow the whistle and tell you where to go, you need to go there. But I'm not going to. Back in the day, I used to let them get out and then give them pressure on the land, get them back in. But then I had troubles having dogs get out of the damn water. So I'm like, this isn't working. This is not working because I can't get them to run. And just face it, at the Grand or the National, whatever game you play, you're not going to run it down the shore water blind 25 feet away from the bank. You are going down the shore water blind. They got to get in that really weird gray area. And if you have a dog that's scared to death to get out, you can't get them into the gray area because they take too much water. So, but if you don't teach it right, you can't keep them in the water either. So what I do nowadays, is the second I see them make the decision to not fight a factor, I get involved.
Okay. So you do it the way I used to do it.
What's that?
Interesting. You do it the way I used to do it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I'm a big believer in that, and I use very, very low pressure when I do it. So if they're going down the shore water blind and the shore's on the left and the wind's blowing right to left or whatever, and I see them in the right lead and they're fighting the wind, they're fighting the second I see them switch leads and give into the factor, I blow the whistle. Depending on the dog, I might give them a bump on a low one. That means seriously, that's it. And then give them the literal calf, depending on where they're at. If they're a transition dog, I'll give them a 45 to get them out in the water, but I'll never give them an over. I don't do overs. But I give them a 45 to teach them, hey, after the bump, take more water. Now, if they're a grand level dog, I'll give them a little bump and give them a literal cast.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer in when they make up that decision and you see them give in to the factor, then I get involved.
Interesting. So, yeah. I've asked a ton of people this on the podcast. It's not quite 50-50. I think more people lean towards doing it when they hit the shore and recalling them back in and doing it. But it tends to be the more field trialers lean that way. and some of the hunt testers lean the other way.
Yeah, and how I kind of look at that is I'm good friends with a lot of great field trial guys, and a field trial dog, and I could be completely wrong on this, but this is just how in my brain how it works. When 'cause I get dogs from coming out of the Derby whatever, and they won't go back even close to the same area. At a hunt test, you've got to be able to do that, and so I think a lot of field trial guys kind of teach a dog where not to go. Don't go here. And I'm a more of a firm believer is teaching them where to go and make the right decision and make that decision not out of fear of getting in trouble, but make a good, smart decision because they've been taught to think. And especially you'll see it a lot in tech water is if you overdo it, burn them up on land here and there, they're terrible in a tech pond because they don't know when to get out or they flare off the bank or they flare off the shore or they flare off the point. I'm a firm believer in teaching them where to go, and they'll make a good, smart decision because they're not scared.
Yeah,
they're not scared of the repercussions. Like, oh, I screwed up, my bad. Now, if there's a dog that you cannot, get it through their brain when they make the decision, sometimes you just have to let them get up there and say, okay, get up there, and then bam, you're in trouble. Now get back in, and they're like, oh, okay. But I try not to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I think that in the end it comes back down to balance.
It is.
If your dog, whatever way you do, you have to have balance because one leads to the other and the other leads to the other. It's
we got to be really careful here too because we trade a lot of dogs, British dogs or whatever and man, you burn them guys up around land and points and stuff. That's they won't get out of the damn. They just won't get out of the water. So that's just how they are, but. I'm a firm believer in teaching a thinking dog.
Yep. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
What's a mistake you see amateurs make again and again, and then how would you avoid it?
Timing. Training or testing?
It doesn't matter. I'm just looking for a good answer.
In a test, it's timing. It's they're usually an amateur that's not a student of the game or that's not learning under somebody that's good. You're sitting there going tweet, blow your whistle, and then they finally blow their whistle, and they're so out of whack they can't recover at all. Then once they can't recover, they start screaming over, which doesn't work. Stop doing that. They go straight back. But it's the timing of the whistle. Usually it's their timing because let's just face it, a lot of amateurs don't want to blow the whistle on a blind because they don't want to get involved because they've only got 5 or 6 whistles in them because they haven't taught their dog how to handle pressure or cast into the wind or they're more of a spectator than an actual handler that's involved.
Yeah. I talked about that in the last podcast because that's what I saw a lot of. You're not driving the dog through the blind. You're not driving this vehicle in a sense.
You're just watching it hit the wall.
Yeah, you're watching it hit the wall, and you're trying to stop it as it's hitting the wall.
As parts are flying off your car, you're trying to fix it, and it ain't going to work. But it's timing, and I see that in training too. And I see a lot of really bad collar stimulation timing, or I see people get frustrated, and that is what they do. They're correcting out of frustration and not using their brain, and then that dog is really confused because you lost your temper, and now that dog you're paying for it.
Yeah.
So
and how I learned this was I would just sit behind pros for days on end.
Yeah.
And just watch them run blinds, and then that's when it really saw. Like I watched Dan do that, I watched Clark and Lyle do that, and I was like, okay, if you watch for like 10 days straight of somebody, like you start to see so a lot of times going back to that, I see a lot of times dogs aren't being driven through a blind.
Yeah. And
the thing that I've noticed, or the thing that I do to work on that and to build that mental fortitude to say is so often I see people running let's say a pattern blind. They send the dog for a blind, they stop them once, and then they cast them, and the dog runs to wherever that destination is. And that's great when you're teaching a dog how to handle. But when you get to an advanced level dog, right before our call, I was sweating like crazy because I went and ran a pattern blind in my backyard. And I think I sent the dog to 7 different piles. No, not 7 different piles. I made 7 different casts to probably 4 different piles.
Okay.
Because
perfect.
I'm like, not that one, You go and I don't know if honestly I'm not sure people realize that's
Yeah.
that's one great way to build that fortitude. Is it's not always about carrying a cast. It's about, yep, I'm going to stop you 3 feet in front of that bumper that you think you're going to pick up,
Yep.
and then I'm going to demand you take the cast to somewhere else.
Yeah, we do that in our
that.
pattern line. We do that in our pattern line lining and casting program, or we do out back. We have, it's like we learned from Richard Walters, not Walters, but DL Walters, and it's like 10, 12, 2, and we stop them and cast. We cast them all over the place, the bumper in their mouth. We do a lot of that stuff too. For sure. And I mean, but that's all part of teaching a dog. Well, and here's the problem that a lot of amateur people have is a lot of their dogs have a ton of go and tons of go because how am I going to say this without sounding? They haven't taken any go out of them because they're scared to overhandle or blow too many whistles, or they're scared to. So their dogs have tons and tons of go. And they're super, super impulsive because they haven't taught their dog how to control their impulsiveness.
Yes,
100%. And they just go like a poison bird kills them. Smell a poison bird, run over there. They can't stop them, and because they've never talked about dogs hey, how to control their impulsiveness. And what you're doing is you're controlling their impulsiveness. Hey, I want to go there. Well, listen. Oh, I got to go over here. Okay, I got to go over here. But that's a great way to build that team, the team part of it. Because if you don't teach those, especially those high rollers, if you don't teach them to be part of a team, you are SOL, man. You have no shot. No shot.
And I kind of believe this. I don't know if this is actually true. Maybe I'm curious what you think. But when a dog's 5, if they run a blind as hard as they run a mark, you probably haven't challenged their blinds hard enough yet.
I agree with that. But there are some dogs that Flashes and Jets, the Indies, Invaders of the world, that they could be 12 and they're going to run wide. You can't stop them. You can't. Now in training, they slow down a little bit, but that's just how they are. But they're good team players. So but when they were little, we fought that a little bit, of course. But and I think that's a lot of the reason why I always tell this to people that own Goldens. And they get mad at me. I've trained a pile of Goldens and I own them, but everybody says, "Oh, that Golden nose is the best." No, I don't think it is, because I don't think they smell any better than a Labrador or any other dog out there. I think a lot of the Golden, it's just the breed itself. The Golden nose. I think you should call that the Golden impulsiveness.
I totally get that.
And so they're like, they'll be running a big, oh, butterfly. And then, that's just how they are. And not all Goldens are like that, so don't kill me on that. But I think it's when they smell something, it's just their impulsiveness and their curiosity, and they're like, oh, it's a bird. I'm going to go pick it up. And I think that's just the nature of the breed. I don't think their nose is any better than a Labrador. And I could be wrong, but
so you would say if a Labrador, like let's say it's in the fringe of what the scent cone is, you would say that there's not a difference from a Lab and a Golden if they were just walking down the street and they smelled something.
I don't think so at all.
Interesting.
And I could be wrong, but I think a lot of it is just the Golden impulsiveness, because that's just what they do. They see a butterfly, they see a frog, they look, what is that? And our Labrador, because here's how I know that is because we've left bumpers or poison birds out on, it's running a poison bird thing and the wind's blowing right to left over the top poison bird, and you'll run a Labrador down there and you see the dog at the same point in there, look over, smell it, and just keep going. Where the Golden's like, smell, well, here we go, and he just runs over there. Like, we just did this shit last week. Stop it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he'll just like, look, run over there. But you see the Labs smell it too. Or you throw the poison bird out, and off it, you run a blind past it, and a Labrador doesn't even look at it. And you can come back and you're like, well, he didn't smell it, but he comes back, you put him on the bird, he goes and picks it right up. He knows it's there. So I think a lot of this just has to do with the breed and impulsiveness of the breed. So I train a lot of flat coats too, and they're the same way.
Yeah, they're like kind of from the same like tree, right?
I don't know the deal about them, but it's they're a lot like a Golden when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So all right, so just maybe 2 more questions. So if you only have take away setups, because I don't believe you can train a dog without running setups. Like if you can't figure out, like, you have to figure out a way to run setups, because it has to.
You got to run setup.
You got to run setups. But there's a lot of times, like 10 minutes after work, or before church or whatever, you got 10 minutes. What would you have amateurs do for 10 minutes a day with their dog?
What level of dog?
Pick one. I don't care.
An advanced transition level dog.
Transition. Most people struggle with transition.
Let's do transition. You got 10 minutes to do it. I'd run wagon wheel.
Yeah.
Like an 8-point wagon wheel, or run pattern blind lining and casting, or something that builds. If you only have 10 minutes, you're not going to run marks in 10 minutes. That's not going to happen. But if you only have 10 minutes, do something that's going to build that team aspect in you and your dog.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would say something very similar.
Yeah.
I do a thing a little bit different, just because some backyards aren't big enough to do you can do like a 5-yard wagon wheel, or like a 10-yard wagon wheel. Yeah. But I do this helter-skelter drill. It was a Hillman drill where you just throw out birds randomly at different distances, but in a very confined area. And it's just lining. It's just a lining drill.
Yeah.
Going past, like, the biggest thing I think amateurs struggle with is teaching dogs how to deal with suction. They don't fully understand how suction. Because they don't want their dog to get into trouble. They haven't taught their dog how to deal with mental stress, so they don't deal with suction, because they're. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? It all comes together. Like it's all the same. The suction, mental stress, impulsiveness. That's the actual whole problem. It's not just suction. It's teaching dogs to deal with mental stress and stuff. Yeah, it's doing the hard stuff really good.
Yeah, because they don't want to do the hard stuff, because they want to drink beer and chest pump with their buddies, saying how great they are. They don't want to. And I get into this with the amateurs that train here, and I've got some really, really good amateurs that train here. But it took them a long time to understand that you've got, and you touched on your last podcast, which was fantastic, but you've got to put them in situations that are going to be stressful for them and teach them to get out of it, whether it's suction or whatever you're talking about. If you don't teach them how to deal with that stuff, you're what are you doing?
Yeah,
I mean, 100%. What are you doing? Like, you have to teach that. But a lot of amateur people and or pros that I know, their egos can't take that. They can't take that. They think they've had a bad training day if their dog got in trouble. And I look at the exact opposite. Like, you had a great day. Like, you taught that dog something.
Yeah, as long as they learn something.
And as long as they learn something, yeah. Correct. It's
sometimes I walk away being like,
it's like watching a dog go out on a marking setup, and everybody else's dog is pinning them, bam, bam, bam. They're not even hunting for them. But then I see a dog have a really, really good hunt, and they're like, "Oh my God, my dog can't mark." I'm like, "No, that was awesome. I mean, give me a great area. That was awesome. It figured it out. Give me a great area marking dog over a pinpoint marking dog any day of the week." Any day of the week, twice on Sunday, because you can't fool them. They get in there, they find it, and so if I see a dog get in and have a really nice hunt and figure it out, I like that way more than I do a dog that goes out and pounds everything, because that dog isn't going to always do that, and those dogs don't know how to hunt, so they struggle.
Yeah, I wonder. This is something I've been challenged with a lot. Is that I don't know if I believe that there's dogs that are only pinpoint markers. I think those are dogs that haven't been challenged enough, because I think that if you have a dog that's genetically wired to pinpoint, but you work really hard at putting birds that are hard to get, like are hard to find, they can teach themselves how to really hunt.
Yeah, and
I firmly believe that
they do. But on the other end of that spectrum, I had a dog in training named O'Malley years ago. Had 8 grand passes, qualified all ages, master hunter, the whole deal. And that was back in the day where you could only run 8 dogs in the grand, and he was an unbelievable pinpoint marker. I'm telling you, he was incredible. But I'm with you, and here's what I do on that. This is going to sound crazy, but usually hole number 1 in my trailer is the top dog. Right now it's Flash, it was Jet, then it was Breaker, then it was O'Malley. But hole 1 is top dog, and hole 1 is your best dog. Whether it's marking, it's your best dog. And like Flash is there now, he's got 9 Grand Passes. But he runs the very first setup. He's the first dog to run the setup for the day every day. So his marking, there's no bird scent in the field. There's nothing in the field. There's just a frozen duck that's thrown out there. And this is no scientific proof to this at all. But I think those dogs when you do that, it teaches them to be a better marking dog if they have the skills, because there's not a bunch of scent in the field, and they have to find the bird without the help.
Yeah. Oh, I do totally. And when I was training by myself and I was just me and 1 or 2 dogs, that was it. I mean, there was no bailout, fall area that was going to help. I had no birds. No birds.
And those dogs that are naturally talented learn that you almost hone their skills even more doing that.
Yeah.
And I'd be quite honest with you, and it's a fine line, because I have done the exact opposite. I said, okay, this dog is my weakest marking dog. So I'm going to do the Flash effect, which Flash is dog 1. I'm going to flip him, and he's going to run a Flash spot, and I'm going to teach this dog how to mark better. Well, it didn't work that way, because they're not mentally ready for that, because they're not a very good marking dog to begin with. And if they have these big hunts and you have to handle or whatever, then they lose confidence, and they don't get better. They get worse. So you got to really be careful if you decide to do that. Put the one that mentally can do it. Those dogs that do it every day like that, those are the ones that give you 110% every single day, no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what.
I use this a lot when I'm training. So now I don't do it as much in field trial setups, because if I'm running a big field trial setup, I try almost always to throw birds, because if they've made it to I want them to find the bird.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because these things are really, like, if you're trying to teach something about the route to the bird, I want them to find that bird at the end. But if I feel like my dog is just crushing it, I throw plastic for as many days in a row as I can. And when I start to see, like, okay, I'm starting to lose, I need the confidence back, boom, I'm throwing birds that next day. And it's just like, it's not exactly like shooting a flyer where it's like this, like, I like my life again type of thing. It's more of, I'm always balancing challenging and giving them marks that they'll get that confidence. And I'm a notorious therapy marking day. Like that's what my ABCD drill is a lot of times. It's I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna throw ducks on an ABCD marking drill. Don't think, just go.
That's a lot of amateurs. That's a lot of amateurs and pros too, that they don't do that enough, because let's just say they've got them in the handling field and they're teaching them, maybe they're forced to pile, or there's something that's really stressful mentally on them. Then they go out and they run like an HRC club, triple diversion of blind. Well, they don't need to be running triple diversion of blind. They need to be running an ABCD drill or something, a therapy type. If you see your dog struggling in the handling field, struggling with handling, don't make them struggle in the field with the marks either. Make that more fun, and you're going to get a lot more out of your handling. I see a lot of people they just start compounding stress on it just starts building, and next thing you know, you got a shell of a dog.
Yeah. Going back to what we said, momentum. And
what I'm going to do coming into this grant is I'm going to start throwing pigeons on land, dead pigeons. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's not going to be much fun, but we have to run the Master National too, and they throw pheasants on land, and that is a game changer. A game changer, let me tell you. So yeah.
It's good stuff. Well, Chris, we've been going for a while. I try to keep these things around an hour. So,
okay.
In a sense, any last words, man?
No, man. Thanks for having us. And you do a great job on your podcast. I've been listening to it, and it's fun. We've not met. If we have met, I apologize. I don't remember, but
no, we talked on the phone one time when I was long time ago. But
what did we talk about? That was it. What did we talk about?
When I had first met Dan, I had a dog. My first dog was going to Dan, and the trainer that he had working left. And I was curious. There was a dog. I had another dog coming that was out of Mason, and a dude female. And that was a dude out of dude. That was a female.
Yeah.
And I was trying to see and I called you and I called Durans, and I was trying to see if like that was going to work out, but I couldn't. The distance didn't work out, and Dan and I became really good friends.
Yeah,
and that was kind of it.
Yeah,
but,
Dan's a good dude. Dan's a good dude.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
You won't remember it, but
no, I don't.
But you put her down, and you called me, and you're like, "Hey, is Finley coming?" I was like, "Oh crap, no, she's not coming." I felt terrible.
I probably have it on text or something. Who knows? But yeah. But no. And thanks for having me. Go ahead. But no, thanks for having me. And you guys do a good job. And hopefully we'll see you at this Grand. And if anybody wants to listen to some other podcast, I got my own Flatlander Kennels podcast. It's kind of fun. And we're going to have you on next week, Elliot says. So that'll be fun. So
yeah, it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you to our sponsors, Purina Pro Plan, for sponsoring this and every episode of the Hunt Test Hobo podcast, as well as Retriever Foundations. We talked a lot about different things that the courses provide. If you're looking for a good program, Dan and I are in the midst of filming all of the basic and transition work that he and I do. So that hopefully will be available soon, as well as his upland course. We have finished the filming of the upland course. It is 60 videos, and he has 350-something consecutive upland passes. It's a bulletproof program if you're looking for something. I'm hoping that it comes out in the next month and a half or so. I'll have a bunch of discount codes for listeners and stuff. But we're trying to produce as much content that will help you guys have a good program that you can follow if you want to do well in the hunt test game. That's going to be good. And then if you're also looking for daily setups, check out Clark and Lyle's the hunt test guide. They post daily setups. I've been actually, Clark sends me a lot of funny videos of his setups, but today I went in and looked at some of the past Grand setups that he's doing, just because, man, when you're training by yourself like I am, like every day, and you're the one in charge, man, you need some new idea, new inspiration, because you need just some different marks. So looking up those daily setups that he has, I threw an island bird today, and I haven't thrown one in a while because that reminded me. So if you're looking for something to help you get new ideas for setups, check out the Hunt Test Guide. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Thank you for having me.